Hello everyone and welcome back. Yesterday DICE released the final patch for Season 1, patch 1.2, so I thought it would be a good idea to just walk through it. I'm not going to read everything out of the paper, instead I'm going to point out and show the most important pieces. There are new features, completely revamped map, vehicle and weapon balance changes. I have divided everything into sections, so just feel free to jump around whatever floats your boat using the timeline below. Sit tight for here we go. First of all, DICE has finally added a profile page into the game, showing some more or less interesting stats. To be perfectly honest, it's just a long list of numbers and I'm not really overly fond of it. If you want a good overview of your performance, at least as good as it gets, go visit battlefieldtracker.com instead. There were rumors for weeks and they turned out to be completely true. DICE looked at the K30 and found it overly powerful. Subsonic rounds, standard issue and high power rounds, they all get nerfed. Subsonic now does less damage up to 40 meters, while standard issue and high power only are affected within 10 meters. Really, it doesn't make much difference. I don't really think this will make people go away from the K30. It's still one of the best weapons in the game. I mean, in the clips you just have seen, I wasn't really switched on and I messed up quite a few opportunities, but still it shreds the enemy. Continuing with another popular SMG, the MP9 is also nerfed. Close combat rounds now do less damage up to 40 meters. Well, to be really accurate, it does less damage up to 5 meters and then between 30 and 40 meters. But well, again, it doesn't really make much of a difference. It's still a great weapon. Running with the same theme, close combat rounds for the M5A3 now also do less damage up to 20 meters. The M5A3 is basically an SMG when configured to my liking. It's still an absolute beast. As with the K30 and the MP9, the change basically requires one more bullet to hit when the enemy is up in your face. But all of these have outstanding rate of fire, so time to kill is still very, very low. The BSV, the weirdo hybrid weapon that arrived with Season 1, probably the only DMR to mention among the best weapons in the game. I thought it was going to be nerfed directly and even rushed getting it to tier 1 before the nerf. But DICE actually buffed it with higher bullet velocity instead, making it even more potent. But now finally, time has caught up and DICE nerfed it. Or kind of. For starters, the full auto mode no longer provides recoil compensation, and instead it gives a dispersion penalty. 15% they say. I don't know, I really don't know. Did this change hit the air at all? They changed the damage drop-off or high power rounds to begin at 50 meters instead of 100 meters. Without knowing exactly how much it drops off, I thought I was going to be affected. I like keeping my enemies at that range and I like having high power rounds. But to me, it feels really good at that range. So to conclude the weapon balancing, the top 4 weapons on my list for Season 1 all get nerfs. But even though that may sound bad for them and good for anyone that don't like them, the changes kind of miss the mark for me. I can't really see the changes making a real difference, especially not when I actually play them. I'm just going to mention that the stealth heli's 30mm is nerfed and now overheat faster. This should raise the skill required just a tiny bit, but for a good pilot I don't think this is a big issue. The previous nerf of Condor and Super Hint 50mm didn't really achieve the desired outcome, so DICE decided to nerf it further in this patch. This time they actually got to the core and decreased ammo count and blast radius. They also increased replenish time. This should actually get effect. Alright, so let's flip the coin. DICE did counter the flying battle stations by buffing mobile AAs, the Wildcat. AA missiles now do a lot more damage, but it still requires 2 hits to bring down a Nightbird. AA lock range is increased by 50% up to 600 meters. They also made dual 30mm do more damage and it always does the same damage at all ranges. While that sounds pretty OP, there is quite a bit of spread, so longer ranges it doesn't hit. With the 30mm, the AA starts to feel a little bit like the AAs in Battlefield 5. I think that is news that all pilots dread, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see if it really gets there. A final note before going on to Kaleidoscope. Pike got the really powerful buff of no longer being spotted when using a pike vision. Clearly DICE thinks that Pike is a specialist that should be able to sneak up on enemies, but for me, Pike Vision is a great team too. So I don't necessarily agree on this one, but well, expect to see a lot of Pike in the coming days unless weekly missions go in a completely different direction. Finally, at the final part, the revamped map. Kaleidoscope 2.0 sounds exciting. It's actually extremely exciting, so much that I put my own exploration server up and went out there. As you can see, there are a few changed areas, but I fear that they are a bit off when playing, for instance, Breakthrough, since it all moved to just a small piece of the map at the other end. But at least it gives some immersion. But looking at the large portion of the map, the new stuff is fairly limited. A crane here, a box there. I kind of expected more. I really did. One thing that I noted fairly soon is that the water is now shallow. This means that it no longer works as a defensive barrier, forcing players to swim and take great risks. It also means that it no longer cuts off vehicles and forces them to use the bridges. In fact, I don't think bridges are any valid option anymore, since they expose your vehicle and prevent movement. This doesn't have to be bad. It opens up for new cool angles and uses of cover, but it also makes the map a little bit flatter. I don't know, for sure, something to try out. That's actually all for now. I had fairly high expectations this patch, but feel that I'm left wanting. While I kind of agree with nerfing certain weapons and changing some maps, it didn't really feel like the changes really panned out. Add a number of bugs introduced with the patch, and it feels like a half a step back, at least to some degree. The news that Season 2 only will contain one new map, it didn't really make things more exciting. Don't get me wrong, I still think Battlefield 2042 is going in the right direction, and I still like the game, but it's taking too long, and there are still some pretty crucial issues that need to be addressed. For instance, when you have more than 3 friends, or the general lack of really high quality content like exposure. And on that wet blanket, I'll call it for today. Cheers!